Oh yeah, survival aware, support aware. So this is the next, don't laugh at me. Don't you.
I'm not laughing at you. Brian just walked in the frame.
Oh my God, finally. You know, Brian's never seen the show. Brian, come here. You're going to see your first episode of HAMYAW. Okay.
She's talking to you. I have my headphones on, so you can't hear you.
Hi, Brian.
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
Get out.
No, I need you
I
to
literally
speak
said,
up, Brian.
please do not come home.
I need you to
Now?
speak up, Brian.
Oh.
Wait, now I have to, should I bring Zach
up?
into the frame now? Welcome back, marketing nerds of the world. It's time for another episode of HAMYAW, and today we are discussing the thing that's on everybody's minds right now, which is panic in the pandemic. We are coming to you live from the incredibly weird, very intense era of coronavirus. Panic in the online business world, in the regular business world, in the parent world, in the kid world. Everything is kind of a mess right now. So we wanted to make an episode to talk about what we're seeing, discuss a few things going right and going wrong in the business world, and just generally riff with all of you about what's going on. And most excitingly, this episode is being filmed in front of a live virtual audience. So where you're at home, give yourselves a round of applause for watching live with us. Margo, how you doing over there? How's your apocalypse been so far?
Every day is different. Like, I'm actually very grateful for my friends that have been in AA because they're like, every day, just take it day by day. And I'm like, that is really good advice. Like, don't try and plan ahead, just like get through today. I think trying to stay positive is the hardest thing while also like giving yourself permission to totally fall apart.
I think what was really interesting is the Wednesday before New York City shut down, so this was a couple of weeks ago, I knew it was getting real because I was scrolling through my phone and it was like the NBA canceled its season, and I was like, holy crap.
A year
like,
ago.
That was 10 years ago, also 2 weeks ago. That shooketh me to my core, and I knew, things were serious when something so big budget, culturally impactful as the NBA was just literally closing for the rest of the season. That was wild. But I think what was most interesting was that my first instinct was like, okay, how can I help? How can I create a helpful webinar or a masterclass or a low ticket offer? Really stand up and be a leader in this time. And then within 48 hours, it was a tidal
Just
wave.
kidding.
Yeah, I was like,
all that
canceled.
time you thought you had.
So talk to me a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of the deluge of helpful content right now.
Yeah, so this is interesting, you guys. There are a lot of people putting out really great, helpful, useful content right now. And I think if you have an audience, it's a really powerful time to stand up and lead. I know we've done an episode on this before, but the difference between vulnerability and disclosure is vulnerability takes courage to share with the right people who've earned the right. So the people who are in your audience, in your tribe, speaking to their struggles as their leader, vulnerability. But disclosure is when you're kind of verbal vomiting all over people who shouldn't hear your private business. And we're getting a little bit of that. We got to be really careful that that's not what's happening right now with your content. And that's where, like, we always talk about on HAMYAW, creative allies are the most important thing. Like, I'm going to call Hillary and fall apart, and then I'm going to show up on this webinar and we're going to talk about useful things. But we're not going to lie about the fact that we're falling apart. There's a line. There's a line. So I think, like, when it comes to content, part of the reason why we need to maintain our mental health and our calm is so we can be strategic and discerning with what we put out and how we put it out. So something we wanted to talk about today is like watching people do sort of panic responses, either in their content or how they're structuring their services. I'm hearing a lot of people very afraid of selling, a lot of people who are discounting, or opposite end of the spectrum being like, I gotta sell now, you gotta buy all my things. And here's somehow like creating a link between this and the pandemic, and you're just like, wait, what? So yeah, I think like number one is keep your core as much as possible. So leaning on those creative allies, taking care of your mental health and your physical health to whatever degree that you can. And so you can think clearly and strategically about, okay, what does this freaking mean for my business?
Absolutely. And this is what Margaret and I were talking about kind of from the first time things started getting really bad, which is you cannot make smart moves if you are panicking and if you are stuck operating up here in like Kermit arm mode, where you're just like, what if I do this? And what if I do that? Even though it feels like everything is so urgent right now, really being able to take a beat and come at it as much as you can from a place of calm, because that's how you see the door opening, and doors are going to open. So many of us are online business owners. So many of us have been living the virtual work from home life, the strategy life, the consulting life, the copywriting, creative direction, design, developers, like, you know, what so many of you make up that kind of population. And I don't want to be like, it's our time now more than ever, because right now everything fucking sucks. But if we stay calm and stay centered and know exactly who we're helping and how, and just stay focused on that and being present to what's happening and responding, then when that door opens, you'll be able to walk through it. But you can't see it if you're freaking out and trying to discount, throwing panic $27 offers out there just to make sure that—
Talk to us about that, Hillary, the panic discounting.
Let's get started with that, guys. When we were talking about panic sort of topics that we wanted to talk about, the immediate discounting was the number one thing that I wanted to bring the hammer down on all of you guys right now. Well, not all of you guys, because I don't know if you're discounting your services. I'm pretty sure Paul Jarvis isn't, and he's here with us. So listen to Paul, guys, if you don't listen to me. But I think what I'm seeing a lot of right now is people immediately responding to the crisis by believing that businesses who are going to hire them are no longer able to at their current price point, ergo they should drop, 25%, 50%. Do not do that for a couple of reasons. One, it can attract the wrong kind of client to you. This is kind of like what they talk about when you do lifeguard training, where you see somebody out there panicking and drowning. When you swim out to get them, you're putting yourself at tremendous risk of being drowned yourself, because they're panicking, they're holding on to you any way that they can. And while we want to be able to serve those people and help those people, you have to be smart about how you approach it. And immediately discounting not only can attract the wrong kind of client, it also devalues your work, which is a huge problem right now, or it could be a huge problem. And we are the economy. If we keep our prices up and we all hold the line together, everything can stay strong. And there are different ways to create opportunities for new clients than discounting. So one of the ways that both Margot and I are doing that, for me, I'm extending payment plans.
Same.
For my coaching. I know Margot's doing the same thing. I'm extending payment plans for coaching and for my, creative direction and copy clients. Normally it's within 4 weeks, but you're adding on an extra 2 or an extra 4. So it's 6 to 8. That's one way to do it. Also adding value. A coaching client of mine, Rachel B. Turner, shout out, offers a really amazing 6-month coaching program. And instead of discounting the service, what she's doing is she's actually bringing in her fiance, who has a master's in leadership. So they're going to be doing a leadership call for one-to-one clients, because she's discovered in the world events that she's not just attracting people who want to up-level their businesses and create funnels and all these things, but they really want to step forward as a leader because they're seeing such a call for that right now. So that's another way to kind of look at the opportunity and create value or extend payment plans instead of discounting. Because again, I know the first thing you're like, throw it out the window, like offload the ship,
everything
like
free,
bring in everything I can. But in reality, you still want to be mindful, and you still want to remember that you have the power of choice right now, just as you have ever had. And clients who are a great fit to work with you are still out there. So hang tight and reinterpret the way you offer things, as opposed to just automatically discounting or cutting yourself off at the knees.
I want to jump in here because I think one of the things at the heart of this is we're making a lot of assumptions. And the first thing you don't want to do is you cannot assume anything about your target market right now. I'll give you an example from my own business. I was planning on running Ignition, which is a writing accountability coaching group, starting April 6th. As soon as all this happened, I was like, there's no way. There's no way. No one has time. No one's going to be like, hey, let's write a little. Because the whole point of it is to carve out time for writing and build that habit. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to have to move forward with a different product. My cold traffic is applying to Ignition. Like, I'm getting applications. So I was like, okay, what is this about? This makes no sense. I thought a live program for sure would be a bad idea with people with kids home and da-da-da. Turns out a lot of people have jobs where they're home for the first time. They don't have to commute. They're thinking about what actually matters. So they're going, oh shoot, I really want to finish my book. They're starting to care more about themselves and invest in self-care. So like, we really don't know what this means for the market. So I think first thing first is like, don't assume that your market is completely out of cash. By the way, if your people are in fitness, they're doing fine. I mean, it depends on their company, but like right now, there are certain companies that are actually doing really, really well. So the panic brain is when fear takes over and you're terrified, which is totally understandable. There's a global pandemic. But if we pause and we're like, okay, what do we know for sure? And how can we make our existing plans fit into what's happening in the zeitgeist so it doesn't feel totally tone deaf? That's a fair concern, y'all. I'm going to pivot here into talking about tone deafness. Yeah, Heather made the point. Zoom is doing really,
Zoom
really
is
well.
doing great.
Yeah. but that's its own set of problems, y'all. Some people might be struggling with scale too fast. That's a huge issue. Also, if you're in the B2B space, I mean, thinking about the opportunities of what might be happening in businesses that are booming that might actually need help from people who are digital natives who've been operating in this space for a really long time. So we need to take a moment to think about the difference between finding beautiful opportunities in the market that you can jump into and be helpful, and being absolutely tone deaf.
I want to talk more about the tone deaf in one second, but I also want to remind you guys that even though the pool of ideal clients may be smaller, for some of your offers, they're probably more passionate than ever. And I actually had a really similar experience to Margot where, you know, my coaching and creative direction is, and like messaging strategies, what I really, really love to do. Those are my 3 favorite things. I'm still a copywriter, obviously, but I was seeing so much interest in my strategy, in my coaching, in my creative direction as the things were getting worse and worse, because people finally have a chance to pull back and think about what they want in their businesses. You know, in the case of my coaching, what's like your statement piece, your big idea, how do we thread that through your offers and everything so we build a really powerful brand? For messaging strategy, how do we pivot? What the hell is going on right now based on like, you know, the current market? And then for creative direction, it's people having time to finally pull back and work on their brands. And they're like, man, I was going to do this and this would have been perfect for this time, but the best time to work on it is now. And I was like, wow, it's really fascinating. Those opportunities are still out there. So hang tight, guys. But on that note, there are definitely some industries and brands that are kind of fucking this up right now. Margot, I think you have a lot to say about this.
I have so much to say about this.
Finally.
Y'all, the emails. I can't. Okay, so the amount of emails I have gotten from companies that I didn't even know had my email address for the last 5, haven't heard from in 5 or 10 years, all of a sudden being like, here is industry associates response to COVID. I'm like, first of all, who the fuck are you? Second of all, why do I care what your response is? Like,
the best is, we're here for you. I'm like, you're a fake tattoo.
Where have you been?
Site that I bought like 2 things off of for Burning Man in 2014. Like, what are you doing in my inbox? You don't care about me. You don't know me. Like, I haven't heard from you.
This is the panic response though, because what they're doing, I guarantee you, is satisfying shareholders or some sort of panicked board member. And they're like, just want to tell the board member, hey, I did something.
We're building brand loyalty, guys. This is where it starts.
It's
in the middle of a pandemic.
Here's the thing. The basic laws of human psychology still apply. So if you all of a sudden haven't talked to your friend in a while, like let's say you haven't talked to a friend that you were BFF AEAE in high school, and it's, let's call it 6 years later. Let's be generous because we're all so young.
We're such children.
We're such 20-year-olds. So even if it's 6 years later, right? You don't just suddenly call them and be like, I have this great opportunity for you. We're doing just fine. Everything's great. This is how I'm responding to the crisis. Like, no, you start out and you be like, hey, remember we used to be friends? That was crazy time. The time we snuck into the movie theater. And like, you find something that bridges who you are with who they were, and like, actually build that relationship back. So we talked about this in an upcoming episode that we've actually paused for a little with Shanae Howard. Shout out to Shanae.
She's awesome. Maybe she's
amazing. We have a HAMYAW AF coming out with her. And we talked about building that brand loyalty and that equity that you need. We were talking specifically during a launch and how a lot of people freak out during a launch that they're trying to build relationships with people, and that's the wrong time to do it. And this is the same exact situation. So if you want to build that loyalty with people, it should have been done 7 months ago. This is why we put out content. This is why you show up in people's inboxes. This is why you continue to be on Instagram and do all those things that you're like, this isn't profitable. Why do I show up like a human? This is why in this moment, because this is when you have to sort of cash out on that equity, sometimes literally, but also figuratively, to be like, hey, now you can actually stand up as a leader because you've earned it. But showing up out of the blue, that's tone deaf. No one cares, and you're actually eroding your brand equity. You're getting more unsubscribes. The more empathetic thing to have done is to have a subject line in your email that says, haven't heard of me, but
haven't heard from us in a while, but
like, remember us? Question mark. And then like explaining who you are. You know, that's one road in if you really do feel like you need to say something. The other version of this, by the way, that's the tone deaf thing that people are freaking out about. One is, so I just explained, it's companies showing up in your inbox or online, acting like they're your friends when they're not your friends. That's a huge problem. And the second thing is matching the content to the climate. So that is a real sticky one, and where I think most of you listening, you're on the opposite end of the spectrum, you're really good people. And so when you're really good people, we sort of overcorrect by being like, I can't do anything right now. But I'll explain the bad people. And they're the ones who I've seen a lot of Instagram ads sort of come at you where I just feel for some of these brands because they clearly had like a Facebook ads manager that forgot to turn off their ads.
Yeah. It's my favorite game right now, by the way. Like, is this on purpose or did the ads manager forget? It's like, also real quick before you, just the Facebook ads, they're hilarious because you can see where somebody went in, like slapped 3 more bullet points on it, like about COVID, and then just went into the regular ad and there's no tie-in. It's just like, things suck right now, right? I can't believe it. Anyway, here's why you should buy my sales program. It's just like, oh my God.
Do you have time to write an ebook? All of a sudden have no time to commute? Ready to publish your book? That's the like sleazy kind of opportunistic. We here at HAMYAW actually like opportunistic in the positive way. Part of being an entrepreneur is spotting opportunities, right? The saying, my dad used to say this growing up, success is when preparedness meets opportunity. That's the kind of opportunity you're looking for. But what we're not looking for is jumping off and trying to feed off of people's panic or just completely acting like nothing's changed. And so my favorite example of this is Ryan Dice, who runs Digital Marketer, they're just selling. And some of that's awesome. You should keep selling and business as usual. But the timing of a couple of their offers was so bad that this is the right thing to do. I'm going to give credit where credit's due, even to scums. The credit they did, they got on and he sent out an email. They have a huge list. And was like, listen, that was really tone deaf. I'm sorry. We weren't really considering the climate at the time. We shouldn't have been moving forward with this particular offer. Fell on the sword, mea culpa, and I promise you brand loyalty went up from that. But let me be a little more specific about what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about sales packaging that is either really trying to sound opportunistic in a bad way where you're making, again, assumptions about your market that you don't have founding for, or you're trying to make an arbitrary tie-in like what Hillary was saying. That arbitrary tie-in of like, this is somehow relevant. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be to still be useful.
And that's the thing too. I think this is sort of the question mark around like what a pivot actually is right now, right? Is it like adding a few words to the Facebook ad? Is it totally changing, the sales page, the emails you're sending out? And I've actually been doing this real quick, guys. Just a little bit of background about how I've been responding to the crisis and why maybe you haven't seen me putting out, as many webinars and all of that stuff, master classes as some other folks. And Margot, I know is kind of the same story, is thinking about it in terms of circles. Thinking about your immediate circle where your family, like taking care of them first, then moving out to the next layer. Family and friends is first. Next layer is your clients, your immediate clients. And in that regard, as soon as things started getting really bad, I sent out complimentary 30-minute sessions to all existing clients and then all clients within the last 6 months. And I've had a lot of really, really productive conversations there about like how to pivot their strategy. Some of them have turned into opportunities for extended contracts and more work and all those lovely things. And then from there, I'm actually also serving client communities. Like I'm doing a consulting workshop in TCC, a Copywriter Club group, probably next week, as well as talking to clients about doing a quick pivoting workshop for their communities because, all this crazy shit is going on. And then the general public, because it's really hard to know what like the world needs right now. Oh, your own community also lives in these circles as well. Yeah. So it's, your own community, your own people, who you're serving, what they're needing. But in terms of the public at large, like throwing out so I'm doing a webinar, like, what do you guys want to know? Nobody knows right now. And they need to be led and they need to be told what's going to happen when they join this, the tools they're going to have, all of that good stuff. That is the way to have a productive conversation right now. It's really hard to do that when you're just trying to react to everything going on and having it in public. So think about where you can be most useful in terms of circle right now, like family, clients, immediate audiences of other clients, and then the general public, because actually that's going to show you in waves where you're having the most powerful and useful conversations and when you can be of most service right now, and also what you can be doing to attract more clients based on what the people in your immediate orbit are struggling with and what they need. So that's another reason why not to totally panic.
So I think part of it is also, that we feel this pressure, especially as leaders in our space. I know a lot of you watching are as well, to be out there more, be louder, to lead, which I agree. I think you need to lead, but I think that it's unrealistic to assume there need to be boundaries around your accessibility as a leader right now. And where you might have been doing a lot of sales via DM, right? Or fielding all of your emails, it's not going to be physically possible. If you have kids at home, if you have a spouse who's just annoying the shit out of you, or like clients freaking out, like really, I have so many friends whose clients are losing their minds right now, relying on them. And you need the mental bandwidth to be able to hold space for that, because that is part of your job, to fulfill your commitments to them and client manage a bit, but like that takes up space. So if you are missing Instagram, if you are not online as much as you would be as a public figure, there is Slack. I know Gary Vee tries to make you really, really scared of disappearing and not having enough content. I am telling you, you're going to be fine. If you have to ghost for a little bit and then come back, or you have to be inconsistent with your posting right now, it's totally fine.
Margaret and I have been talking about this. The only way to lose is if you disappear completely. If you need a break to process what's happening, if you need to go internal to figure out what the questions are so you can learn about where you can be of most use, like take that time, because we're going to be like this for a while, probably. Like that's the reality we're looking at right now. So it's not necessarily about like, where's the fastest thing? What thing can I do right now? It's what am I seeing in the market? Like zoom out. What am I seeing in the market and how can I be of most use? And that's a really important and powerful thing right now that all these brands in your inbox saying, I'm thinking about you, aren't doing. You're seeing that play out in real time. And I think this is actually a really valuable lesson for everyone as well. And another thing that's important to keep in mind, I actually did a blog post on this recently, which is Eugene Schwartz's 5 Stages of Customer Awareness. Hands up, marketing nerds who know what that is. I did a blog post on also the 5 stages of COVID response, which is basically like, I know it's really smart. But no, read that. It's really good. You haven't read it? How dare you?
I don't know how I missed that.
You're supposed to be reading all my emails.
It must have been because we're in a pandemic.
This matters to me. Your daughter can hang out by herself and I don't know, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to finish that joke because she's adorable and we love her. And secretly, I hope she rolls into the Q&A. 5 stages of COVID awareness. If you're not familiar with Eugene Schwartz's 5 stages of customer awareness, it's basically people who have no idea who the fuck you are and don't even know if they have a problem, all the way to people who are like thirsty to buy whatever you're selling as soon as you drop it. Like, gimme, just take my money.
Like Jordan.
They're like unaware, problem aware, solution aware, product aware, and then most aware. So that's the Eugene Schwartz version, but the H. Weiss version goes a little bit more like this, which is we start at total panic. Mm-hmm. And this is where a lot of people, especially if they're just going through a shutdown right now, especially if they've been like, COVID isn't really a real thing. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh no, like my work is stopped. That's total panic mode where people are starting to realize kind of what's happening. And those people obviously not primed to buy right now. Not excited, don't know what they need, don't know where their head's at. They're kind of in headless chicken mode. And these are a lot of people who are glomming onto a lot of the free content right now. They're being served in a really powerful way, which is why, again, we were talking earlier in the call about toilet paper hoarding mode, as Nicole says. I think this is why I'm encouraging you guys to pull back from like offering a bunch of free stuff to the world at large right now, because that's the kind of people it's attracting. Mm-hmm. And those are wonderful people, but are those the people that you necessarily, you got to make sure they're the right fit for your audience. The same rules apply. You always want to make sure that you're bringing in audience members who resonate with what you do and are not just smashing the panic button and kind of absorbing everything they can. So there's just total panic. That's the first level. And there's panic aware, where people who know they're freaking out and understand that, okay, they need to be calm. And these are people who are, again, looking to be led, looking for real resources. They know exactly what they're looking for. They're looking for specific stuff. And then there is total panic aware, there's survival aware. And these are people who are like, okay, I've got some space. I've got a cash cushion. I was kind of ready for this. Now what do I do? Like, how do I not make the most of a crisis, but like what needs to happen next? And these are the sort of more people who are likely to invest in the higher level stuff. They're just starting to wake up to the fact that they could really use the support, that it should be kind of hands-on. And those are the people kind of in that phase. So we have survival aware, which I just talked about, and then support aware. This prospect knows they should keep investing in themselves and know that a calm guiding hand is going to be basically what they need to make sure their business kind of stays level. Then they're ready to grow when some of the stuff sort of calms down. And then most aware, and this is the same thing as Eugene Schwartz, is people who are just like waiting in the wings for you to offer something so they can pounce. Thinking about them kind of in those terms, as opposed to just like, what are my people freaking out about most and how can I fix it, will help you kind of edit your approach and tweak your language in a way that's going to target people who you don't necessarily have to lead through certain stages. Like, you don't necessarily want to maybe be working with people right now who are in total panic mode, because it requires a lot of energy and frankly expertise to right that ship again. So take a look at that. I can drop the blog post in the chat for you guys, and we'll link it when we do the actual show recording if you want to check it out. So that's basically the way I'm thinking about things right now. But again, this is what you're not seeing in these crazy, crappy emails you're getting from companies, these Facebook ads that feel really lazy, and all these people who are trying to pivot and figuring out whether that's just slapping 3 words on a Facebook ad or whether it's totally redoing your stuff end to end. So that's basically where we're at with the messaging strategy. A lot of you are actually going to have messages that don't necessarily need to be seriously tweaked right now, especially if you're focused on, conversion copywriting, helping clients plug holes in their sales funnel, all of that good stuff. All of that is already relevant. If anything, you can crank up the urgency and just change the lens a little bit. Maybe you're talking to your clients and saying like, oh, wow, you're looking around and realizing that you maybe should have fixed this before the crisis. The best time to fix, holes in your conversions or whatever was before Corona. the best time is right now. So that's just basically something to think about when you're thinking about your messaging strategy, when you're thinking about how to pivot, when you're trying not to be an annoying marketer. That's a place to start.
Yes, I think that is the best note I want y'all to take away, which is all of this fear that you're being annoying, that you're being pushy, that it's not a good time to sell. Lean on your ethical persuasion roots. The same rules apply. You should never be annoying. You should never be pushy. You should never be selling people stuff that they don't want, right? Ever, 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 ever. A big part of what we do in sales is match someone's problem to the solution that you sell. So this is still in effect. Like more than ever, your copy training, your marketing training, that is what you rest on. And so this all hinges on the most important thing that the tone deaf marketers aren't doing, or businesses, which is empathy. Just some empathy and compassion. Your target market, who is she? What does her day look like now? Put yourself in that situation. Close your eyes, walk yourself through her day, and then figure out, of the problems that she currently has, where does your solution fit? And it might be that nothing's changed, that your messaging is still totally fine. It might be that it's better and more powerful. It might be that you need to tweak a couple of things to fit into her new circumstances. And so all of that hinges on having some compassion, some empathy for your target market. And then on the flip side, for yourself, the main thing to take away from this is you can weather this storm. We need you to be calm. We need you to take care of yourself. Understand the concentric circles Hillary was talking about, with your family being at the core, your friends next, your clients, and then everyone else. So if you need to ghost, if you have to do what you need to do behind the scenes before building your brand, make sure you take care of your foundation so you can make strategic decisions and strategic calls as you move forward, deciding what we're going to sell next quarter, deciding what content we're going to move forward with, deciding what messages need to be first and foremost, and who is deserving of your time. So you want to protect that accessibility as much as possible right now, because your mental load, your bandwidth is super low.
Real quickly, I know you had that really great post on headlines and media panic. I don't know if you want to touch on that. Just really quickly.
Totally talk about
I just want to hear you say a few words about that, because I think that's also driving a lot of things right now. And I loved what you had to say in terms of headlines in business, in like the media, and also in marketing. If you have anything you want to share on that before we jump off, because I just love that and I want to hear you touch on it real quick.
I mean, I could talk about it for an hour.
I know. How much time y'all got, viewers?
I wrote a post called "Coronavirus is Serious, Panic is Optional." And the goal of that post was to get people to understand that there's a difference between headlines that convert, that sort of feed off of emotions, which is what we sort of teach you to do, and headlines that are strategically designed to induce panic and exploit your emotions and put you into a crazy state where you're constantly reacting. And so I use some examples of what you're seeing in the media. This has to do with the business model. So all of us watching use headlines in various places in our work. We use them as banners in our website. We use them as bullet points on our sales pages. We use them as our first line of a status update on LinkedIn. Like, headlines are in all of these places. And what they are supposed to do is act as a beacon, right? So they're supposed to attract the right people and detract the wrong ones. So they're sort of naturally bifurcating when that happens in a good way. So like, people who are not interested in hats shouldn't be reading your headline about hats. You want it to attract people who want to buy hats, right? Who are interested in hats. So it bifurcates. People who like hats, people who don't like hats. Now, the news has an inherently different business model. The news doesn't need you to actually convert into a buyer. It doesn't have an action it needs you to take later. What it needs you to do is view it. It needs you to click and view, because that's how they make money. It's an ad-based model. So the more views they get, the more they can charge advertisers for your attention. And when that's the case, there is an incentive to keep you coming back for more. And what keeps people coming back for more? Fear.
Yeah,
Fear,
so true.
sensationalism, hype, paranoia. It happens to me where I click on things, I'm like, oh my God. And I have to keep going, and I have to keep going, and I have to keep clicking.
Who among us has not been in a coronavirus headline hole?
Oh my God.
Deep, guys. Woo.
Right. And then you forward to 600 people because you're like, you have to read this, even though you only read one paragraph and didn't actually read it. Because you feel like you're doing a civic service, because the news has been sold to you as this duty of yours to provide this information to the public. It's a whistleblower. We're the good guys, right? Which theoretically they're supposed to be. But right now there's a problem with the business model. The business model is based off of exploiting your attention. Now, sometimes that can be an okay thing. There are diplomatic and very, very responsible ways to do that. The way you see ads, for example, on a podcast, they're not exploiting you for attention. They are aware that you are listening and they're giving you content that's relevant. The news doesn't work like that. And so when that's the case and you're hoarding people's attention and you are trying to profit off their outrage, that's when we have a problem. And so what's happening is a lot of us are being completely, myself included, emotionally exploited right now, because there are other countries that are having the same risks as we are right now that aren't losing their shit. And that is in part because of this media machine that we are in, that we are feeling the fear all the time. And so part of what I want us to understand as copywriters and as marketers is that we have a huge responsibility to our audience and to our customers and to our clients to remind them that you can separate the fear from the actual actions you take. Now, I personally think that we can opt out of outrage culture. I think it's time that we, log off of Twitter, protect your attention right now. If you ever feel that feeling of like, oh my God, the world is collapsing. I have to forward this to 600 people. What am I going to do? Like that feeling, it isn't real. It's manufactured by people who are misusing the tools that Hillary and I teach. And that's part of what we wanted to call out and what I tried to call out in this article. There's another way to communicate information that's useful, that focuses on conversion, that focuses on getting someone to take an action. Because when someone's in fear, the only action they're going to take is to search for more information, a desperate attempt to pull things back. And that's where you get it where we started with this episode, which is panic. You get people going, I got a discount, nobody's buying, all these things are happening. You start making assumptions because fear hijacks your brain, makes you a crazy person. I'm a crazy person when I'm afraid. I don't know anyone who's made a good decision.
Everyone is.
You get desperate. You start doing really, 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 really bad things. So part of the self-care call to action that I want to bring to you guys is if you are able to take care of your mental health and maintain your own sanity, you can better see more objectively when you're reading something, using your brain. Really, all you need is your brain to pause and go, okay, how do they know what they know? How was this framed? Start asking the hard questions. And if you really do want to read, like I'll explain how we know that this is manipulation. Before 2 weeks ago, none of you were interested in microbiology of infectious disease. And now everyone is quoting to me graphs and charts and articles they've read. I'm like, when was the last time you read an academic article? I went to grad school for this and well, not for microbiology, but like I read academic articles and they're boring. And I promise you're not reading them right. And there's plenty of problems with the studies and different ways that you can understand data. So like your data literacy, not interested in it.
Scientific literacy in this country, we have enough of a problem as it is. And now everyone's an epidemiologist. So that's fun.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's not saying that we need to be inherently distrusting, but there is a way to communicate information without making people lose their minds. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this episode, please like it below, comment, tell us how you are dealing with the panic, and subscribe to our channel. I'm Margot Aaron.
And I'm Hillary Weiss.
This is HAMYAW, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Thanks for watching.
Bye for now, guys.
Bye.